Russia's government announced to the press that it's ready to send a delegation for negotiation talks with Ukrainian officials in Minsk, Belarusian capital. This Friday, a 6.2 magnitude earthquake rocked Indonesia's Sumatra island, killing 7 people and injuring 85. In Burkina Faso, a commission of experts introduced a proposal to hold elections in 30 months with the purpose of returning to civilian government. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Russia is ready to send its delegation to Minsk, Belarus, for talks with Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov told reporters. According to Peskov, the delegation will include representatives of defense and foreign affairs ministers, as well as presidential administration. On Friday, it became known that Ukrainian head of state Volodymyr Zelensky, in a new video message, invited his Russian counterpart to sit down at the negotiating table. Zelensky stressed that this way he intended to stop the killings of civilians. In turn, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Moscow will be ready to start negotiations with Kiev after the Ukrainian military laid down their arms. He also assured that the Russian side was not going to oppress the Ukrainian military in any way. On February 24th, President Putin announced the launching of a special military operation to protect the Donbass.
We are ready for negotiations at any moment, as soon as the armed forces of Ukraine respond to our call, stop resisting and lay down their arms.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reiterated to Vladimir Putin to hold talks on current situation.
I'd like to address the Russian president again. Fighting is going on the entire territory of Ukraine. Let's sit down for talks to put a stop to people dying.
And the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his Russian counterpart from the Republic of Luhansk, Vladislav Deniego, and the first Deputy Foreign Minister of the Donetsk People's Republic, Sergei Ferzara. The head of the Russian diplomacy declared that his country reaffirmed its unwavering support to the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics in their efforts to secure their rights. Lavrov assured that his nation could not remain indifferent to the request for military assistance made by both People's Republics. During the press conference after the meeting, the Russian Foreign Minister asked the U.S. journalist if the concept of the democracy that they defend in the media, they will accept the banning of a language spoken by many people.
Of course, Russia couldn't remain indifferent to direct requests of the heads of your states to come to their aid against the aggressor. In accordance with our ally obligations, President Putin decided to conduct a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine so that, freed from this oppression, Ukrainians themselves could freely determine their future.
We continue to update the ongoing Russian special military operation in Ukraine. The Ministry of Defense confirmed that they have gained complete control over the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. According to the military report, an agreement was reached with the soldiers of the Ukrainian nuclear power plant, the defense battalion, to provide security for the reactors and the sarcophagus of the nuclear facility. The Russian Defense Office also confirmed that it has advanced 1 kilometer into the territory of the Donetsk People's Republic and 9 kilometers into the territory of the Luhansk People's Republic. The Defense Ministry said it has met with enemy resistance, which it described as fierce. The Russian Defense Ministry also reported that more than 150 servicemen of different Ukrainian security bodies laid down their arms, and that so far they have destroyed 118 targets of the Ukrainian military infrastructure, as well as tanks and military water vehicles and other combat equipment. And Igor Konashenchkov, spokesperson for the Russian Defense Ministry, said that Russia conducted a landing operation near the Hostomel airfield on the outskirts of Kyiv, blockading the Ukrainian capital from the west.
On February 24th, the Russian armed forces carried out a successful combined force landing operation near the Hostomel airfield on the outskirts of Kyiv. More than 200 Russian helicopters were involved in the operation. The success of the landing operation was ensured by suppression of the entire air defense system in the landing area, complete isolation of the combat area from the air, and active electronic warfare. More than 200 nationalists from Ukraine's special units were destroyed during the seizure of the airfield. There were no losses in the Russian armed force.
Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar warned that Russian soldiers could enter the Ukrainian capital Kyiv on Friday. While this statement was known, several agencies and national media reported clashes and crossfire in the vicinity of the capital. Without specifying the origin of the fire nor the forces involved, some agencies have reported that near the town of Hostomel, only 15 kilometers from the Ukrainian capital, intense clashes are taking place. The information was released on the same day that the Ministry of Defense predicted that this Friday could be the hardest day for the country, and President Volodymyr Zelensky himself confirmed 137 dead and more than 300 wounded. The Defense Ministry stated on Friday that the aim of the Russian troops is to seize Odessa, which represents a privileged access to the Dead Sea. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and its partners have left his country alone against Russia. The head of state also remarked that everyone, referring to the Western powers, is afraid and no one responds. Zelensky assured that he had questioned the 27 European leaders about his country's membership in NATO, and nobody answered his question. He assured that unlike NATO, nobody in his government and citizens are afraid, although he recognizes that they do not have a different alternative. In its last report, the Russian Ministry of Defense notified the popular troops of Donetsk and Lugansk advanced about 8 kilometers, supported by the Russian artillery and air force. In view of the situation, the Ukrainian president confessed in his address to the country that no country has offered him guarantees.
But there is a second thing. We're alone defending our nation. Who is ready to fight alongside us? I don't see anybody. Who is ready to give Ukraine a guarantee to join NATO? Everybody is afraid.
The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, announced on Friday the deployment of troops of NATO's eastern flank in Romania in connection with the Russian special military operation in Donbass. During the emergency summit of the European Union, the French president explained that the deployment of his forces is part of a strategy of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which aims to strengthen the military presence in Eastern Europe. The United States assured that it will send additional 7,000 troops to Germany. At present, NATO continues to seek to reinforce the battle groups, which is why Romania and France have offered to lead the new deployment. In Belgium, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that 70% of Russia's banking sector and the state-owned companies will be affected by the European Union's political decision to impose additional sanctions on Moscow over the situation in the Donbass. The head of the European Commission also said during her press conference after the EU summit that sanctions also affect the energy sector, a key economic area for Russian development. Oil will also be affected as a result of the export ban, which will prevent Russia from modernizing its refineries, those that gave the country an export income valued at 24 million euros. However, the decision on new sanctions will have to be legally determined. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs echoed the recent call between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, reiterating that China understands Russia's legitimate concerns over security issues regarding Ukraine.
The sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries should be respected and upheld. The purposes and principles of the UN Charter should also be jointly upheld. This is a principle that China has consistently upheld and also the basic norm governing international relations that all countries should adhere to. At the same time, we also see a complex and unique historical context behind the Ukraine issue, and we understand Russia's legitimate concerns over security issues. China maintains that the Cold War mentality should be completely abandoned and a balanced, effective, and sustainable European security through dialogue and negotiation.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In an exclusive interview for TeleSUR, the Spanish journalist and intellectual Ignacio Ramonet cataloged his February 24th as the starting date of a new world geopolitical age regarding the Russian special military operation in Donbass.
This February 24th marks the world's entry into a new geopolitical age. We are in an absolutely new situation, probably since the Second World War. There had not been a war event as important as this. Evidently, there had been many important events in Europe: the fall of the Berlin Wall, the implosion of the Soviet Union, the wars in Yugoslavia, but this is an extremely important date, and that is true, as you point out that to a certain extent, this event combines with the pandemic.
Ignacio Ramonet also referred to Russia's concerns and demands regarding the expansion of NATO in Eastern Europe.
And what Putin has demanded over and over is that Russia be given guarantees that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, so that the Russian Federation can be certain NATO will not reach the border with Russia, that they will not be deploying nuclear weapons that would endanger the security of Russia. NATO says we have to install weapons to ensure security. I don't know about Poland or Estonia. That's okay, but that endangers the security of other countries, in particular that of Russia. And of course, this was avoidable. Putin said so repeatedly, so to all heads of states or prime ministers who have visited him recently.
Spanish journalist and intellectual Ignacio Ramonet emphasized the constant siege suffered by the citizens of the self-proclaimed Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk by Ukrainian forces.
Now, many commentators in the Western press blame Putin of having sabotaged the Minsk agreements, which provided that the republics would be given broad autonomy by Kyiv. Now self-proclaimed, recognized as sovereign by Moscow, but only by Moscow, and this autonomy was not implemented, a situation endured by the Russian-speaking population of these regions. There have been 14,000 dead. There is no doubt that there is an element of exasperation on the part of the Russian authorities, to which the leaders of the United States and NATO have not known how to respond. I repeat, this could have been relatively easy to avoid.
Now we move on to other topics. This Friday, a 6.2 magnitude earthquake rocked Indonesia's Sumatra island, killing 7 people and injuring 85. The quake came just minutes after a less violent tremor as terrified residents had begun evacuating their houses. The quake hit the island's north at a depth of 12 kilometers, about 70 kilometers from the town of Bukit Tinggi in the West Sumatra province. Indonesia's meteorological agency, the BMKG, warned people to stay away from slopes over fears of landslides at the peak of the rainy season. The quake was felt in the neighboring provinces of Riau and North Sumatra, as far away as Malaysia and Singapore.
A lot of houses are heavily damaged, not livable anymore. What we need urgently are tents, community kitchen and clothing. My relatives here are okay, but my parents-in-law who live in the uphill there have injuries in the head and broken arm, but they have been admitted to hospital.
In Burkina Faso, a commission of experts introduced a proposal to hold elections in 30 months with the purpose of returning to civilian government. The document, whose content was not being made public, will be submitted to the appointed president, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Zandaogo, for his consideration. According to the announcement, the same commission will be responsible for restoring territorial integrity, consolidating peace, ensuring the return of internally displaced people, establishing good governance, and re-establishing constitutional order. Meanwhile, the country has been under various restrictions by the Economic Commission of West African States and the African Union since 24th January due to the coup d'etat that overthrew President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, criticized for his lack of results against terrorism. This Thursday was held the 10th high-level meeting of the Peace, Security and Cooperation within the framework of the Democratic Republic of Congo, with 7 heads of state in the capital Kinshasa. The Kinshasa summit brought together the presidents of the DRC, South Africa, Uganda, Angola, the Republic of Congo, Burundi, and the Central African Republic, a diplomat said. The peace, security, and cooperation framework aims at fostering efforts to stabilize the region. The summit was expected to express concern about logistical and other support for armed groups that remain active in the region. The next summit will be hosted by 2023 by Burundi.
In this regard, the repeated attacks carried out by armed groups against the population followed and condemned the actors who support them, whether in terms of supplies and logistic, or human resources, or even evading any legal proceedings.
Continuing our efforts to consolidate peace and security in the region, and also to bring our people together through into projects that will surely ensure the well-being and development of our respective peoples.
We have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The former Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia combatant Jorge Santofimio was murdered in the municipality of Puerto Guzmán in Putumayo. With this crime, the number of former combatants killed since the signing of the Havana Accords are 305, 6 of them so far in 2022. Santofimio was the head of the Common Community Multi-Active Cooperative, in an example of reincorporation and environmental restoration in Puerto Guzmán. The community was attacked by armed men while the cooperative's board of directors held a meeting. The perpetrators began shooting away, killing Santofimio and injuring 4 people. Jorge Santofimio's murder and the attack on the cooperative added to those reported in the municipality of Tuluá, Valle del Cauca, where a group of men attacked a candidate for the Senate, Jair Torres, and killed one of his escorts. These latest events meant one more blow towards the reincorporation process.
We have to inform you that a few minutes ago the community was attacked during the reincorporation recess in Puerto Guzmán while the board of directors held a meeting. They were gathered at the farm. Comrade Jose Santofimio Jorgillo was killed. 4 comrades were wounded. There are children wounded. We hold the government responsible. There have been 2 murders in less than 3 days in Putumayo, plus the situation in Arauca. We see the government does not respond with effective measures, but with indulgence towards the assassination of peace signatories.
Also, we have news from South America as Venezuela reopened its border with Brazil. Government authorities from the Venezuelan state of Bolívar and Roraima and Paracaraima from Brazil attended the ceremony. The Venezuelan governor, Ángel Marcano, stated that this presence in the border zone fulfilled an indication of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros, who called the authorities of the state of Bolívar to normalize the border crossing point. Brazilian and Venezuelan authorities emphasized the brotherhood of the 2 countries and the historical bonds uniting them, also in addition to the benefits of Latin American integration to the people's progress. Authorities of both sides of the border agreed to reopen and normalize the economic and social relations affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Brazilian and the Venezuelan people united on the border. The dream of Bolívar, a united Latin America, the dream of Hugo Chávez, to create a development area that would benefit our peoples, is represented in this humble but historical event that represents the reopening of the border between Venezuela and Brazil. For us, the presence of the authorities of Paracaraima is very important.
Former Guatemalan military commissioner José Manuel Castañeda Aparicio was found guilty of the forced disappearance of 3 social leaders during the country's internal armed conflict and sentenced to 45 years in prison. The unanimous sentence against Castañeda came 39 years after the disappearance of Rodolfo Lopez, his brother Francisco Guerrero Lopez, and their cousin Jacobo Lopez between January 25-26, 1983. The disappearances took place in the municipality of Tactic, Alta Verapaz, 150 kilometers north of Guatemala City, during the armed conflict from 1960 to 1996. According to the indictment, the three social leaders were taken from their homes by more than 25 people, wearing balaclavas and weapons under the command of the military commissioners Baltasar Milian and José Manuel Castañeda Aparicio. Honduras Supreme Court of Justice denied the appeal of former President Juan Orlando Hernández to be held under house arrest during his extradition process. Hernández was arrested on February 15th at the request of the United States authorities. He faces charges of drug trafficking, using weapons for drug trafficking, and also conspiracy and plotting to the same purpose. A Supreme Court of judge ruled out February 16th that Hernández be held at National Police Special Forces, the base in the capital, pending the outcome of this extradition process. The judge handling the case denied his attorney's request for house arrest last week and scheduled a court session on March 16th to hear evidence supporting the U.S. charges. Hernández's two-term presidency ended on January 27th with the swearing-in of President Xiomara Castro. In Mexico, journalist Jorge Camero Zazueta, director of the news portal The Informative and former private secretary of Mayor Luis Fuentes Aguilar of the Empalme municipality in Sonora, died after being shot at inside a gym. According to local media, the victim received at least 3 bullet wounds from a group of armed men who arrived at the site of motorcycles at the Spartan gym where the 28-year-old trained. The homicide is the 6th crime against the press in Mexico in 2022. The murder of Camero Zazueta also added to the assassination of 5 journalists so far this year. The organization Article 19, who monitors attacks on freedom of expression, including violence against journalists, protests, and surveillance, pointed out that the responsibility for 40% of murders falls on public officials, that is, mayors, municipal security chiefs, police, military, and uniformed men of any kind. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.